Hey everyone, I'm Coach Tony. Welcome to Coach Tony's Table, where the madness always meets the method. This is the writing on the board. Are classrooms ready for distant learning again? Let's get into it. Welcome back to the Writing on the Board podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. Before I get into anything else, let me just let you know our merch is available if you go to www.thewritingontheboard.com/merch, or you go to our Instagram page at The Writing on the Board and click the link in the bio. All proceeds go to future episodes of this podcast, and I hope to be able to make many more in the future. So thank you in advance for your support. Okay, now let's get into it. It is December 31st. It's the last day of the year, and it feels like it's not. Teachers have traditionally, I think pre-pandemic, sort of been able to take this time to kind of decompress and leave school at school and do whatever they do to build themselves up to be ready to start teaching in the new year and kind of do part two of school, right? I think part one is before the December break, and then part two is afterwards. And what I feel has been happening is that teachers have only been living in an anxiety state solely surrounding what's going to happen come January 3rd. Okay, so January 3rd is Monday. So that's the first day that we'll be going back to school. Omicron. Everybody and their mama got Omicron. Okay, it is probably the fastest growing viral strain, and it's concerning. It is definitely concerning. All right, so Omicron is here. Even in states where you thought they were immune, like Georgia, everybody in Georgia got Omicron, right? So now that we see this, the CDC also came out and said, well, since we need essential workers, which teachers are included, to go back to work, once you have quarantined for 5 days and are asymptomatic, get back to work. Most people are kind of calling out the fact that the CDC does not ask you to test negative before you go back to work. And we all know now that regardless of your, status vaccination wise or whatever the case may be, you can still transmit it, right? Asymptomatic does not mean you don't have COVID or that you're not contagious. So a lot of people have questions, okay? There's rumors swirling around that the CEO of Delta asked for this, so that's why it happened. I don't know how true that is, honestly, but a lot of people are concerned because those people who went through having COVID know that on day 5 you were still pretty sick. And even those people who are asymptomatic did not test negatively. So everyone is concerned. And then to top it all off, especially where I am, right? New York, New Jersey area schools, especially New York, schools are not big, right? Social distancing was never a thing when we got back to school. You could pretend it was. Maybe in schools like California, where you have sprawling campuses for elementary and middle schools, you can try. But in schools like New York, the school I was in, you literally had like negative space between yourself and the next person. So teachers over this last few weeks, when they should have been relaxing, have been checking over and over again to see if the district is just going to say like, hey, everyone, let's just all delay the start of in-person school so that whoever has caught this Omicron can be fully quarantined and test negatively before we bring everyone back and sardine them into a school or classroom. What it looks like, though, is that there is a serious hesitancy. All I'm seeing online between my teacher friends and those I follow on Instagram is like, hey, y'all, is anyone's district closing? Yeah, my district said they're closing. My district is not. The overwhelming response, however, looks like the districts are not trying to close. And the thing about why I wanted to highlight this problem is that the response in New York when COVID first started was, we're not going to close. We're not going to close. We saw schools around us in every other state shut down and go virtual. And our mayor was like, nope, because social services, where are they going to eat? Where are they going to get a safe place? How are their parents going to go to work? Many questions that teachers really shouldn't be answering, right? We should just be providing the education, and other social services should be providing the rest of the things that the community needs. Of course not. School is a one size fits all for everything coming to children. That's how it's been, although it shouldn't be like that. And what happened was literally the pressure got so big on the mayor and the hospitalization skyrocketed, where over the weekend, one Sunday on the news was like, boop, school's closed Monday. Boop, you have a day to get it virtual. Boop, all right, it's time to go. And we were not prepared. We were not prepared. And I feel like Omicron is really going to have to do something crazy deadly for all the officials and people who want parents to be in work and stuff like that to actually say like, okay, it's like, we're going virtual, get it together in a day. So this leads me to where I would usually start my podcast. Those of you who know, I love to amplify the voice of other educators. That's exactly what this platform is for. I don't base my conversations or my topics off of things that I think about. It's literally about the submissions of other educators anonymously that I talk about, either with a guest or with myself. Today's submission, however, is not anonymous. I DM'd this person and asked him if I can share a post that he wrote on Instagram. He said, absolutely. I will have him on the podcast in the future. He's at Principal Raw with RAHH. And so I'm going to get into it. I'm going to read what he says and I'm going to talk about it, and we'll get you out of here for 2021. So he writes a post, and then he also has like a little caption in the comments. So I'm going to read both. The post says, schools and district leaders are terrified at possible lockdowns again because they went back to pre-pandemic pedagogy, and now they will be faced with failing with the technological gap again that separates learning experiences. So that was the post, and I read it and I was like, yes. And then there was a caption. This year I have always expressed to the team, are your students prepared if we had to go back to distance learning? And if not, why? What can we do to ensure that if we locked down tomorrow, they would be prepared? March 13th, 2020 should have warned you all. Now listen, I don't think we will lock down, but the question isn't that. The question is, if we did, are you prepared? And this is the first submission I have from a principal, and I hope to be reading principal submissions on into the future. It's no secret that I feel that many admin are not on the same page as teachers, even though they work in the same building. And I really want to close that gap. And I think I can do so by having principals submit their thoughts and their ideas and their commentary, because sometimes as teachers, we don't see what admin goes through. And we do want that viewpoint. Even though teachers do run the building, I said what I said. Right? The principal could be absent. If the teachers are absent, it's a whole other ball game. Okay. However, they are charged with so much more in management than we could ever imagine. And I really want the table to be open for both sides of the party to talk. So shout out to Principal Raw for agreeing to be that first submission. If you would like to talk or submit anything about anything I've said or any topics in the future, feel free to visit our Instagram page at The Writing on the Board, click submit. Or also the website www.thewritingontheboard.com/submit and talk away. Everything's anonymous unless you want me to say who you are. So let's get into it. I really feel like this was something that I really went into this 2021-2022 school year screaming from the top of the roof. Why? Because previous to this outbreak, to the COVID outbreak, we had seen pandemics play out on TV. Okay, like Ebola got to the United States. It did. I believe there were cases, but it was so minimal and taken care of so quickly that it was more about looking at the other countries going through it and those who were able to volunteer their time, sending their money, donations, whatever the case may be, and just making sure it didn't get to the United States. All right, cool. It wasn't real for us. And I'm not downplaying it at all. I don't want to downplay any other pandemic. It was real for the people who had it. But to be very honest, as a whole, it was not real for us. It was TV. So now that the pandemic has literally been able to cross the border and affects this country in such a magnificent way, right? And I'm not just talking about sickness. I'm just talking about the way we do business, the way we, think about online presence. We are forever changed because of this pandemic. My thing is it can happen again. It will happen again. Now that whatever loophole happened where we were able to be infiltrated so terribly, it will happen again. Why do I think that? Hurricanes. New York is a place that gets rain and snow. We're good for that. Before 2011, 2010, the majority of people that were alive in New York had never really experienced a real hurricane unless they left the state. So they haven't really experienced it in New York. Sandy and Irene came through, and when I tell you people did not prepare, they did not prepare. They were not ready. Rich people ended up getting their buildings destroyed, ended up losing power, they weren't ready, okay? The Lower East Side was a hot mess. And now, right, policies do come with hurricane insurance. Now we've had a few hurricanes since then. I don't think we really had the magnitude of damage we had, but also we were not prepared at that time, right? So even this last hurricane we had hit Jersey really badly, but people really now understand like hurricanes can do damage and we are not immune. So when I saw that experience and that response, right, and the lethargicness, is that even a word? The lethargy of the people that heard about Hurricane Irene and Sandy coming through, I thought, we cannot do that with this pandemic. We've already experienced such change and such loss and such gravity that we need to start preparing for the next one now. So when I got into the 2021-2022 school year, I was shouting from the rooftops, no more paper, okay? My students, when I went to, I was at a different school at the beginning of the pandemic. We went virtual and we were a hot mess because we didn't have platforms prepared or anything like that, because I do teach in underserved communities. Our resources are slim, I should say. And it was a scramble to make sure everyone got these little crappy Chromebooks, and nothing on Chromebooks. But now when it's like your life is on a computer, you need to have a machine of power, which is just the truth of the matter. And I will say this, Chromebook has stepped their game up. The later Chromebooks that have come out have really had more capabilities, but most schools were not purchasing those upgrades. So we were scrambling, getting everything together. And so it was a lot like, oh, use your school email, which a lot of students hadn't even signed into at that time. So one of the first few emails I got was a student writing their entire email in the subject line. And I was like, oh no. And the thing about it is I have no doubt that students can engage with technology academically if they need to. The thing is that no one has sat them down and demanded that they needed to, right? Especially in underserved communities. This is pretty much the basis of the podcast today. I'm talking about students in underserved communities, the students I served, my experience. If your experience is different because you served in another school district, please let me know. Go ahead and hit that submit button and tell me what you think or what was your experience. But in my experience, students were struggling because they had never had formal training how to use social media, how to use online presence productively, academically. So when I came back, I said, I really want to make sure that while I can stand next to my students, I'm giving them all the tools they need so that when we shut down again, and I really wasn't even thinking in this school year, right? I was just like, okay, it's clear that they're not prepared. And maybe in the next 2 to 5 years, we may have to deal with this again. And I want to make sure my students are set up for success. And that takes practice. That takes time really evolving with technology and understanding how to use it, and schools experimenting with different platforms combined with the technology available in the classroom and in teachers' homes to make this a success the next time we shut down. It is documented. If you go into my old school servers, you can see the emails where I said this is what I want, because it was so hard to get students to show work mathematically through a screen, right? The new Chromebooks are touchscreen. But my school only replaced the chronically damaged Chromebooks, not the damaged ones, the chronically damaged ones. So maybe there was a sprinkle of students that were able to use their stylus provided with the Chromebook and actually like show me work. The rest had to do some real extra operations. It was hard to really understand the little, just to say on side note, most platforms really weren't mathematically prepared, right? They didn't have a keyboard for mathematical symbols. Math was the last thought of I need to be completely online. Even in graduate school, I hated doing math homework online because they would just provide this little pop-up symbol, keyboard, and it really sucked to just try to write out everything, all the formulas, all the equations, the solutions with that little, it was annoying. So I said, let me try to engage with students technology-wise as much as possible. Online etiquette, online presence. What is bullying? What is plagiarism? Do not take a sentence from the internet, copy and paste it. It's not your words, right? How do you cite your sources, right? We growing up had to cite books and magazines and articles. Now you have to cite podcasts and online pages and people's quotes from videos and YouTube. How do you do these things properly? Many things happened at that school, and I ended up leaving. And some students have texted me and told me that when I mentioned admin, I'm not even gonna get that specific. Admin brings up the fact that I refuse to use paper. And I would call my student right now and see if she would respond, but I'm not even gonna go that far. You have to take my word for it. The response with admin was we were trying to, or according to my students, because they call and say, Coach Tony, this is what she said today. And I said, okay, admin says, you're not using paper. She wasn't using paper. Okay, we've been trying to get her to use paper and she didn't use paper. And that's also not true. And I have receipts for that. Okay, but that's what they said. So cool. And it's kind of shocking now because it's like there is a chance, right, that Omicron is going to get really bad. Because as we know, especially in New York, right, I could talk from my experience. And like I said, if you want to submit to this conversation, please do so. From my experience, we are going to be one of the last people to shut down. So it's going to have to be that millions of people are really getting sick and so many people are really being hospitalized and like everyone's sounding alarms and everyone's crying and the streets are just pouring out, and then maybe they'll say go back to virtual again, and it will be a very last minute response because right now I'm sure the direction is due to the fact that vaccines are available, we are not closing. We're not closing. So there's a very big chance that many admin and many principals are not preparing to close. They're not preparing the technology. They're not checking if Chromebooks are ready. They're not checking if schools are prepared or teachers are prepared to have platforms ready, especially in math, right? Where it's very hard to show work. Do students understand the ways that they can do long division on the computer, right? Using Kami, using GoFormative. Are teachers well versed? This is another thing too. The pandemic really showed the disparity between older teachers and younger teachers. Older teachers are worth their weight in gold. The changes they've been through, the amount of relationships they've been able to build, we need them in our classrooms. But, story time, I was in a school during the pandemic and I got recruited to my last school in November. The school I left, they offered me the job of tech guru because I was someone who was using all the tech appropriately and actually using it to its full potential. And so to get me to not leave, they're like, hey, we can offer you tech guru. The thing about it was I have a young daughter. I can't take on an extra role for more pay. I just want more pay. So I left. However, the fact of the matter is it's true. When the pandemic started, many older teachers really struggled with what it was to just live in a tech world constantly, 24/7, right? And before the pandemic, I used to have teachers be like, oh, what are you doing? What's that? Oh, that's an iPad. So cool. Da, 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 da. And I had invested in that iPad through my business on my own. So not every teacher had an Apple Pencil capable iPad. I was the one, what was it? It's not airdropping, casting my screen onto the smart board and teaching from the back of the classroom and all that stuff before the pandemic. There are receipts for that as well. Not everyone was doing that though. So because of that, now we got into a point where teachers are stuck. And then we got back to school and nobody said, hey, let's do a PD on all the technology that's available to us now in the school. All the technology that the school is going to invest in, so that if we do have to be like this again, our teachers are not feeling stranded. Our teachers are not feeling like they're technology deprived. So not only just the teachers, but the students, not only the students, but the teachers. Everybody needed to get some serious PDs on how to survive academically, technology-wise. Because here's the thing. It's for certain that if the world starts blowing up again, we have to be online. There's no way around it. We're going to, if the world starts, if it gets so bad that they have no choice but on a Sunday night to be like, boop, you're not going to school tomorrow, like they did in New York in March, right? When the pandemic first started, it would just be like a whirlwind. It wouldn't be okay. The fact remains that we can be a technology-based school even if we're in person. We can't be a paper-based school in the virtual world. So we need to beef up what we're doing, especially since that's the way that we're trending. Like the metaverse, right? A universe in a whole other dimension of reality. It's becoming so mainstream that major brands and major personalities are investing in land and throwing parties and conducting business in an alternate reality. Like if you really think about that, that means that our students, to be able to participate in society once they graduate, need to have some kind of coding experience, online presence experience, defending yourself online experience, eye contact with the camera experience, just etiquette online, learning how to use your words for good and for social justice. There's so many things that we are not even scraping. Much less I have a student writing their whole entire email in the subject line. And then just in the Omicron sense of things, if everyone's infected over the break, you want to at least give 10 to 14 days before you open the school. Everyone should be virtual right now until January 15th. Like, honestly, that's really what it should be. Everyone needs to stay in their house until January 15th, just to let the majority of people who have certainly been affected calm down. Like, that's just common sense, and it's not happening. I think that's like maybe the minimal response I would expect from every district in the nation. Hey, Omicron's numbers are rising in even states that never really had such an uptick. Everyone should be quarantined for the first 15 days of the month. Please do your best to stay in your house. Do not move. Do not do anything. Just stay there. Let your symptoms pass. Test negative, and then we'll try to start on the 15th. For the states that want to do absolutely nothing, that's the minimum that they should do, and most are not. So most teachers are sitting at their computers, their desk, their phone, just constantly checking to see, and that's not rest. And I feel so sorry for everyone that's going back on the 3rd. The Great Resignation is real. There's many people who are not going back on the 3rd, but to those of you who are, please stay safe. Please, please, please do your best to stay safe. Understand your health is more important. If you need those 14 days, please take them, right? Don't let nobody force you back into the classroom on day 5. You may be still carrying, and we don't really have all the science to say whether or not you can be contagious or not, okay? If you do not test negative, you still have it, period. That's for a fact. So shout out to all the educators who are going to be up in there on the 3rd. Let's see what happens. Hopefully Omicron is something they're saying hospitalizations are not as serious. So let's see what that looks like. Let's hope that it's not serious, and let's hope that we can get it to a point where we're quote unquote back to, I hate the word back to normal, but I'm gonna say it, okay? And if we do, we need to start to outfit our students technology wise. I do have some plans to have people on who work for EdTech. I think it'd be great to have EdTech here to talk about what they can do for the space. And then also, right, there's 2 sides to every story. Abuse. What does tech abuse look like, and tech addiction look like, and how do we make sure that our students are not suffering from that as well, right? But I do feel that making sure we move positively in the direction of EdTech creates a distraction for students who are looking at tech negatively or looking for the negative sides of tech, right? We had the devious licks, we had all these challenges, we have the ridiculous threats, right, that was made against schools all around the nation through TikTok, right? Or which I don't remember what social media platform it was actually, where it had schools scared. Like, are people going to bring guns to school on this day? Like, what's going on? And I think that if we give students a way to engage with technology or to grapple with technology where they don't have time to pay attention to the foolishness that's online, that's one strategy. It's not all strategies. We still need to educate them on what to filter, right? Because parents are going to work for hours at a time and students are literally exposed to everything. And we really don't teach them about how to filter technology and how to use your judgment about what you see. Growing up, internet was a new thing, right? So our parents were weary and it was like, don't post your address, don't do this, don't say that, don't do this, don't talk to strangers online, right? Parents were more vigilant about filtering our experience because the internet was quote unquote a bad place to be, right? Until it became not really a bad place to be and it served, to be very useful. And so now the parents of today are not as wary about the dangers, okay? Especially since so much, like, you can apply for a job and they're like, what's your handles? What's your social media handles? Back in the day, social media was unprofessional. How dare you? Now it's like, let's see all of your profiles, LinkedIn, social media. Let's see Instagram, let's see TikTok, let's see YouTube. Where are you? What are you doing? And it's not even to see if you're scandalous or not. It's to see if you're using it to its full potential. Like, do you know how to use this? If we need you to post for our business, could you do so? Could you write a good caption? Do you know about a call to action? We're not preparing our students for any of that. So I leave you on this last day of the year with more questions than answers, but I think the one answer definitely is that as a school, you need to start to make sure your teachers that may be older and not as familiar with technology are prepared. And please do so with respect. I don't care what you say. Older teachers are worth their weight in gold. Gold, I tell you. Okay? Obviously, if they're not in it for the right reasons for all those years, then fine. But most of us will quit over some of the things that these teachers have been through. So when it comes to teaching them technology, please be respectful, but that's something that's needed. And then the students too. The students need to be on point. They need to be on point because there were some private schools that when the pandemic started, it was like, dear parents and students, please use your school assigned MacBook. Be on the portal on Monday. We'll have further directions. And it was very seamless. And it needs to be like that everywhere. So the work continues. Once again, shout out to Principal Ra. And I cannot wait to have you on the podcast. I do know he did say yes, so I'm excited to talk to him in person. As all episodes have been and all episodes will be, this episode is dedicated to my little brother. For those of you who do not or do know, he recently lost his legs. His story is available in my bio. His motivation to still keep pushing despite everything he's been through is my motivation to accomplish my passions. Is why I get up here every single week and produce this for you every Friday. So that's it. Thank you for rocking with me. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.
616, 6212, 6318, 6424, 6530, 6636, 6742, 6848, 6954, 61060, 611, and 66, and 6072.